Next question. As a high school student at a public high school, my wellness teacher said it's okay to have sex when you're protected and are safe, and when you both agree that you are ready. Well, let's break this down for your wellness teacher. Now, God bless health teachers in the public school systems, but most of them are not, medical professionals. They're typically like a volleyball coach who needs an extra teaching spot. They're like, well, you teach health, and here's the book. I'll just read it a day in advance before teaching. Okay, here we go. These are not medical professionals. And as a result, unfortunately, the medical and relational advice they give out often isn't top notch. So let's break this down. Is it okay to have sex as long as you're protected? Okay. Telling like a 16-year-old you're protected by giving them a contraceptive device is nonsense. I mean, that's like literally me telling my 6-year-old, now Joseph, don't play in traffic. It's very dangerous. But if you're going to do it anyway, at least put a helmet on for dad. And then you're protected. It's like, no, not the message you'd give to the kid. Also, just think of the language of protection. I mean, if we're talking about making love to your beloved, where does protection fit into that equation? It was that Janet Smith is always talking about I want to make love to you, but I'm going to kill any of your sperm that come my way. Or I want to give myself to you, but let me put my barrier in place first. Isn't the language of self-gift contradicted by this language of protection? The only true safe sex, ultimately, emotionally, spiritually, physically, is within the sacrament of marriage where you're truly protected. But outside of marriage, we've got to put up all these guards because we're taking this gift out of the sacred confines in which it was created to be exchanged. So protected. Are you safe? Well, as long as we're safe. Well, medically, the most common STD is something called human papilloma virus. You've heard me talk about this before. It's killed more women than AIDS has because it can cause cervical cancer. Now, interestingly, there is a condom brand, Lifestyle Condoms, actually put on their condom packages that this will protect you against HPV. Well, they got a call from the Food and Drug Administration on that. Yeah, can you back that up? Because scientifically, that's actually not true. Here's an actual quote, what they said. Lifestyle Condoms. It said their public relations firm, quote, mistakenly included HPV among the diseases for which latex condoms provide protection. They said, well, make sure to take that off. Yeah, you probably should because that's medically inaccurate. But more importantly, again, safe sex is degrading. The very concept, the idea of safe sex is degrading, especially to women. Why? It reduces a woman to her genitals. Because look, as long as she didn't get chlamydia and as long as she's not pregnant, that girl is safe. Oh, really? Okay, well, how come she's like bawling her eyes out after this broken sexual relationship? I mean, they used protection. She's safe, isn't she? No, she's not, because sex is not a biological act. It's a human act. It involves the human person, the soul, the heart, the memories, the family. And like I said, give a kid a contraceptive and say, now you're safe and protected. It is a false sense of security for them to engage in risky behavior that's only going to leave them more hurt than they were before. And so it's not safe. Well, what about, we both agree with it. Well, we're kind of becoming God here, right? Well, if I agree to something, then it becomes morally acceptable, right? In fact, there are universities that I've seen that are actually requiring students to make sure that if you have intercourse with another student, you need to make sure that they sign this consent form beforehand. Otherwise, they could accuse you of date rape. And so just make sure they sign there and they date there. It's like a release waiver or whatever. Like, how romantic. It's like, hey, in the heat of the moment, it's like, wait, time out. Could you just sign this? And then, oh yeah, today's March 25th there to that. Okay, all set? All right, let's go. Yeah, that's a bit of a killjoy in the moment, don't you think? Not terribly romantic. And so, but the idea, well, as long as we consent to it, it's kind of like from the Garden of Eden, right? That tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The devil's like, God doesn't want you to eat that because he knows that if you eat it, then you're going to know what's good and evil. And the thought is like, well, why wouldn't God want us to know what's good and evil? Doesn't he want us to know the difference between right and wrong? It's kind of a mistranslation, so to speak. It's not that he doesn't want us to be able to distinguish right from wrong, but knowledge in the sense of choosing what is evil and what is good, of the sense of I determine this is good. I will declare that to be evil instead of submitting to the way that God has orchestrated creation. And so are we trusting in what God has already told us? Are we trying to have dominion over the moral laws, declaring things to be ethical simply because we consent to it? Last part of that thing that wellness teacher says, well, as long as you guys feel ready. Okay, ready. I remember watching this, it was a Dr. Phil TV show years ago. It was talking about teens and sex. And most of the show is a lot of good advice. And then he says at the end, so what we've learned today is teenagers, you should not be engaging in this behavior until you are mature and you are in a relationship where you are ready. Like, what? Don't do it till you're mature? Like, I don't know about you, but when I was 15 years old, I had never been more mature in my entire life as I was at that moment. I mean, I was maturing by the hour. I mean, tell a kid don't do it till you're ready. It's like a green light. We got to understand the part of the teenage brain that's in charge of critical thinking and weighing risks and consequences, completely underdeveloped in the brain. It's called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. Won't be fully developed until they're about 24 years old. And so if a teen thinks they're ready for this, I mean, I remember a 7th grader come up and he's like, Jason, my girlfriend and I have talked and we're ready. I'm like, 12. I'm like, you ready to be a father? And he's like, no, just for sex. And, after explaining to him the shocking connection they just discovered between the two, I said, well, you know, my wife and I got married, had kids. I said, you don't know, our first baby had a lot of medical problems, being in all these different hospitals. I said, for the first 2 years of his life, I spent well over $30,000 in medical bills on him so I could have the best doctors take care of my sick boy. And you got what it takes to be a good father? You ready for sex? He opened up his wallet and showed me his money. He's like, I have $5. I'm like, buy her a pizza. So if you love her, you prove it. And so when do you know you're ready for sex? Well, it's actually pretty easy. What you do is you just look at your left hand. If you got a ring there on your ring finger, then you are ready. If you do not, then you are not. It might seem like a simplistic answer, but the church's teachings on sex are pretty simple. It's that love, marriage, sex, and babies go together and in that order. And when we start moving stuff around, well, we'll take the sex, put it before the marriage, and maybe we'll even take sex and put it before the love and move this over there, civilization itself begins to crumble. And so God love your wellness teacher, but unfortunately, I don't think she's giving you advice that's going to make you or the society very well. Hey there.